Hello and welcome back to the Purple Ventures Zoom series of video podcast. And my dear guest today is Santiago of Toroto, and we are in Mexico. Santiago, may you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course, my name is Santiago. I am a co-founder and currently serve as CEO of Toroto, a young Mexican company innovating in the nature-based solutions space.
Would you clarify what nature-based solutions mean?
Yeah, of course. When we see the Earth today, it has lost much of its capacity to restore itself, and it has also lost much of its capacity to provide ecosystemic services which we depend upon. Designing and executing nature-based solutions means working with sort of reforestation, restoration, soil conservation works, rainfall harvesting programs, and other such tools from a very wide toolbox of ecological restoration capabilities that are out there. You use those tools to improve ecosystemic services that a certain project area delivers to itself and the human population around it.
Why did you start Toroto 2 years ago?
Thanks a lot for that question. We started Toroto because we, in general, see that there is a lack of character in the way we are facing the climate crisis as a species. It is a solutions-driven movement, driven itself mostly by very Western voices who are also in societies, very deeply embedded in societies that are at the cause of the climate crisis itself. And then I think a little bit more and I realized that most of the potential solutions to the climate crisis, most of the potential nature-based solutions to the climate crisis lie in developing nations that are not getting enough resources to actually carry out this work. And in some cases, landowners, indigenous communities or other rural communities who own forests, rainforests, jungles, etc., get paid a very little amount of money, and they are expected in return to conserve, restore, monitor very important ecosystems that we all use for our daily day-to-days. So we saw a huge opportunity to actually build better infrastructure around urban areas, industrial areas of the world to better be able to funnel money to science-based projects that are actually solving the problem. And what does it mean that a project solves the problem? Well, it means that the people who own that land are actually doing what needs to be done for that land to provide better ecosystemic services for us all.
2 years ago, it's actually exactly 2 years ago and one day.
Exactly 2 years ago and one day, yes.
When you started the company, where did you envision it in 2 years, if at all it was on your mind?
Honestly, I thought we were going to be more B2C oriented, but the size and scope of our work was sort of always there. What has surprised me a lot is the speed at which we have gotten to where we currently are. I would have expected Toroto to be a field operator, to be developing its own conservation restoration projects 5 years, maybe after we started Toroto. But then we quickly realized that good projects are very scarce, extremely elusive. So if we wanted to supply a steady, reliable flow of quality climate action projects, we would need to develop them ourselves.
So where in fact Toroto is now?
That's a very good question. I sometimes need to take a while to realize it, but Toroto is now a 30 people strong cabinet operation with a 60 people strong field operation going on, entirely science-based, where most of the people we hire are technical. We have a lot of forestry engineers, restoration engineers, biologists, other sorts of, even agronomists, other sorts of professionals who can help us deliver on technical problems and technical solutions that have not been developed before. On the other hand, we have a very capable coding team, a very capable development team, who has been able to build technology that will support not only our participation in the carbon market as a company, but technology that will strengthen the carbon market as a whole in Mexico, which is something we are very proud of. So Toroto today is operating projects on over 200,000 hectares, which is way more than what I expected 2 years ago. Actually, I could maybe dream of 10,000 hectares if I can give number to how much surprised I am to be where we are today. And we are in association with over 25 ejidos who are rural landowners, groups of rural landowners who ultimately get the most benefit out of everything that we do together.
So if you were to explain your grandma, what it is in practical terms, what is it that you do?
Yeah, so basically we design ecological restoration programs and make everything that's possible to get them funded and executed well. Today, that solution comes in the favor of the carbon market. So that's where we operate.
What were the most difficult moments of growing the company?
That's a very good question. Thanks a lot. It is a family company. So most of the toughest moments have come when I need to reconcile my position as the company's CEO, but also the son, nephew, and best friend of the other 3 co-founders of the company. So, of course, when things are moving, I don't know if very fast, but indeed faster than what we expected originally, we probably had not set expectations for what came after a certain size, after a certain moment. So managing those internally, not only with the co-founding team, but even the people who joined 1 year ago, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, they're having an entirely different experience to what they signed up for. Everyone, including, of course, myself. So I think the toughest moments throughout these 2 years have been when I have had to sort of mentor someone out of I didn't sign up for this moment of their professional experience, and actually get them into a place where they realize that they have all the tools, support, and motivation that they need to do stuff that had not been done before. And the sheer faith in our capabilities has got us to where we are today.
Anything else?
I mean, yeah, of course, there's other things that are pretty tough, but I wouldn't expect those to be any different from what any other people managing a mid-sized team experiences. I have had an extremely pleasant experience. I mean, in general, I know the question was about what has been tough, but in general, my experience leading Toroto has been a huge privilege, extremely fun. I laugh every day. I'm surrounded by people that are way smarter than me, that I admire, that teach me stuff every day, that don't take my bullshit. So that makes me grow a lot. Also, I get to travel in all of Mexico. I get to meet people from all over the world. I get to go to the field. So maybe my morning meetings are with a farmer and my afternoon meetings are with a board director for a company in the Czech Republic. So no, I mean, overall, leading Toroto has been the joy of my life, and I expect it to remain the joy of my life for years and years to come. No? It's a huge privilege in such a complicated world, in such a complex environment, in such a demanding time for the human species. It's a huge privilege that society is giving us the space to exist in a profitable way, in a way that creates value for landowners, in a way that creates value for society in general. So, I mean, there have been a lot of tough moments, but in general, it's been an extremely pleasant experience.
What do you do to recharge your batteries? Because it was quite a journey, and there were like last 2 months, we barely had weekends, right?
Yeah. So my girlfriend helps a lot, for sure. It's very recharging to spend time with her. But I also juggle a lot, semi-professionally even. It's a discipline that I've been engaged with since I'm 14. and it always helps. It gets along very well with good earphones because you just blast them as much as you can and juggle the shit out of 3 or 4 balls, and I can do that for 2 hours straight, easy. And of course, I'm a nature head in that I also like to camp, hike, all of those things. But actually, I mean, to share more like a professional tip, I have no shame at all for the amount of holidays I take in a year. So for example, this year I have already taken 2-week holidays in March, I think, and I'm about to take another 2-week holiday in September, and I do not expect it to be my last holiday in the year at all. When in my country, the minimum necessary holidays by law are 6 days a year. So of course we treat everyone with exactly the same possibilities in the company. Everyone can do exactly the same thing, but I do like to. What I see works is just doing the work that I need to do, and that it's very hard to control how much work you have. So instead of investing energy in controlling how much work I have, honestly, I do the work, and then I always have less than 4 months away, 2 weeks of absolute disconnection.
You mentioned that you are humble and grateful that you can do the business in a profitable way. It's very unusual for a startup to actually have its first year profitable, and it looks that there will be, let's say, black zero this year, right? You will not be on EBITDA negative, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been allergic to usual day-to-day startuperism, in that it's about burning resources. And although there are extremely valid points about if the idea is correct and the project is right, you should invest and get as much money as you can for it to be in the market as fast as possible. I don't necessarily identify myself with that way of thinking. Maybe in a subjective manner, but I like bootstrapping. Like, I've always been a student of bootstrapping related books and business people. I genuinely like the old, like, grandpa and grandma business where you invest 10 pesos, you get 15 pesos, you reinvest a little bit, then you can get 25 pesos, you reinvest more. Then so I think it's a pretty safe way to do things. Also, in the way which because of how our projects operate, we need a lot of financial discipline, really way more financial discipline than usual companies in our stage. So that allows us to plan for profitability, which is what I think the most sustainable way to grow. Of course, not the fastest, but this is a family company, right? We want to build intergenerational wealth here. It's really what we're after. So having a positive EBITDA, or even an existent EBITDA at all, or even having EBITDA be a part of our day-to-day conversations, I think helps a lot with that financial discipline.
What might be very unusual to learn for the audience outside of, let's say, Latin America, is that you do have serious cash flow problems, right? Or cash flow issues to solve, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of our largest customers, they have policies where they pay up to 150, 170 even days after the invoice was issued and the work was done. So for large-scale nature-based solutions, we need to invest a lot of money and a lot of resources, and the invoice has been issued. So first we invest in doing all the work, then we invoice the issue, then it's 100 and something days for the invoice to be paid. So there's a very important financial aspect to all of what we do. Now, to be fair, all huge companies in Latin America do that, so I do not want to bring any unnecessary negative attention towards our customers in particular. It would be a competitive disadvantage if they didn't do it. So it's more something that I suppose should change from the regulatory point of view. I am 100% sure that if the regulatory environment was better, everyone would just do their part as they always do.
So how did you finance the growth of the company so far?
This is a great question, and actually what most companies in Latin America don't have is a VC like Purple Ventures behind us So we have been able to do a great teamwork in analyzing what profitable projects we have in front of us and actually being able to do sort of like project-specific finance so that we can get profitability in the midterm, and we have been able to do that thanks to our partnership with Purple Ventures. I mean, it's a really unique asset that we have as a Latin American company that most Latin American companies don't have. So honestly, for us, something like, okay, 150 days, 160 days, we need to invest this amount of money. We always have someone to talk to whom which we can present the economics of the project, the expected margin, etc. And Purple Ventures has always been there to support this growth. So even if it was an originally family-funded office, and the family remains as a small contributor to the company's financial needs, our partnership with the Purple family has been a key ingredient of our growth.
Couldn't you use like a banking loans?
Yeah, I mean, in Latin America, loans are extremely expensive. So even if you come from a European environment where you have zero or even negative interest rates in central banks, so this might come as a surprise, but we could even, for example, sell those invoices. It costs like 18% of the money per year. So we would be sharing like between a quarter to a third of our profit with the financial institution. So it really doesn't make sense. It's not a system that is built for small companies to scale fast at all, which is a problem and of course a limitant to the development of the Latin American economy as a whole.
Would you share profit or revenue?
Revenue.
So it would be basically
profit. Yeah. We would be sharing 18% per year on a contract that has 35% margin. That's even more. Like it's even half of the margin that we're sharing with the financial institution in Mexico. So of course, the operative margin that you have to do and that you can use to do magic for your customer is pretty low, right? And the end customer doesn't even know how you are funding the project. They don't even ask. Like they just assume you have the money to do it. So it's been a very unique way to collaborate because it has allowed us to have a competitive advantage that other companies and institutions in Mexico don't have. And this has allowed us to funnel more growth, more impact, more scalability. It's always been success after success, and that would have been absolutely impossible without our partnership with the Purple family.
Would you be able to describe or try to describe what are the other differences in doing business or starting a company in Mexico to the...
Yeah, for sure. We like to play games in hard mode in Toroto. So, for example, there's things like labor laws in Latin America, Mexico in particular. Labor laws here are extremely stringent, so most companies just don't follow them, which creates a lot of social security uncertainty for the workers. But because that's the case with 95% of the companies, then nobody asks for what they're owed, really. We chose to not follow that path, so that would be more similar than in Europe for Toroto than to other Latin American companies, where I know you guys also have to follow very stringent labor regulations with a 1.5 overhead cost in tax for every person that works in the company. For us, it's like 1.4, so it's not that different, right? But that's something we chose to do. With absolutely no stimulation from the outside world, but it really is. We felt it was the right thing to do. It's when we are presented with such a dilemma, we always try to do what we think we're right, what we think is right, and that's one. So labor would be usually easier and cheaper in Latin America. For us, it's cheaper. Probably, for sure, but not easier or less stringent than it is in Europe. Now, the VC environment in Latin America has been exploding over the past few years, but I don't know why I can't feel very connected to what they're after. We're still at an early stage of VC development, so VCs that started doing investments 10 years ago are getting their first unicorns this year, last year, and now they're looking for faster things, right? They don't want to wait 10 years again. So most of the VC environment in Latin America and Mexico are now more oriented towards 5-year exits or 4-year exits even. And with the SPAC model looming around us all, it's more of an expectation of VCs in Latin America for that to happen. Whereas in Europe, you have a more family office oriented VC environment. You guys like funds of funds. You guys ask good questions. You understand what mid-term and long-term wealth is, etc. So that's also very different. In Europe, you need to build sustainable businesses. You need to build a maybe very big mom and pop business where you make the money you spend and then you have a small profit. Whereas in the American continent, it's all expected to run on credit and huge investments, which provides, from my point of view, for a very unresilient economic environment.
There's one thing which is mind-blowing, the difference, right? That if you post a job advertisement, you get like 1,200, 1,800 CVs.
Yeah, so this is for two reasons. Number one, Mexico is not at its best in terms of employment at all. The pandemic did hit us hard. We are, I think, the third or fourth country with the most deaths from the pandemic. So lots of unemployment, but also our particular sector, like we hire biologists, forestry engineers, restoration engineers. Our particular sector is pretty devalorized. So when we come out and say we hire according to law and other related regulations, we pay well, we actually pay decent, very decent salaries, which have, I mean, biologists in Mexico are usually paid, terrible salaries for either teach their whole lives or do bad paid research their whole lives. So when there comes a company with very decent salaries, everything according to law, etc., it booms. So we send a job opening, and it's never less than 1,000 applicants since like February, March, we started seeing that this year. And we do pick the best, right? And we hire the best. And this allows for the best minds to be together in a country where, that rarely happens, right? Because most research happens in universities where you don't choose your team. You are very limited by different rules from the university. They're extremely bureaucratic, etc. Whereas how I think of what we do is we throw a bucket load of biologists into the jungle, see what happens. And it's always great things.
What are the values of the company?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We try to stick to one and study that one and behave according to that one value, which is respect. So we try to study what respect is for ourselves as a company. And of course, this is a conversation that started happening between the co-founders of the company, which I think is exactly what should happen. And we thought of respect as consideration of the person or thing or project or whatever that is in front of you. A process of consideration of where they are and how they would like to be treated. So then what we did is we started digging deeper into different pillars of how we relate to ourselves inside the company and to external parties. So for example, what is it to respect your work? How does it look like to respect the quality of what you do every day? How does it look like to respect your colleagues? How does it look like to expect respect from your colleagues? How does it look like to respect the landowners with whom we work? How does it look like to respect our providers, our customers? And we started drafting definitions for that applied consideration that we are looking for. And also we chose respect because it challenges us as a value. It is not easy to respect anything and everything. I started saying, right, I see a grave crisis of character. So how can I respect the crisis of character? So we also chose respect because it's challenging for us. It's not a value where we say, respect is our value because we are the most respectful. Sometimes you need to choose a value that you want to develop into your professional growth and into your personal growth that is probably not as explored as you would like it to be. So that's why you choose it, not because you have been thinking about it 10 years, right? So that was respect for us.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself over those 2 years?
I am more resilient than I thought, for sure, 100%. And I am also less. So the number one thing over the past 2 years probably has been that now my mental health is something that exists and that I need to take care of. That had never been the case for me before. Like depressions, I never knew what those were. Anxiety, like those kinds of things. I had very challenging jobs before, but either I was very young or I don't know, I had the energy, you know. Now it's different. I've been working for a while now, and Toroto is my life project. It's not something I did. It's something I actually want to do for a while. We're not there yet, not even close. So number one is I do need to take care of my mental health, and I have. And it's been an amazing journey of self-knowing and of reflection and of emotional intelligence development, etc. Number one. But I have learned that I can improve faster than what I thought before. So it's fun, right? Because you identify areas where you can be better, and it's like when you see bees. You take a while to see one, but once you've seen one, you start noticing all the other 500 bees that were around that one bee. So it's like that when you start doing this exercise of improving through feedback that you yourself give to yourself or feedback that you get from others, right? And because my co-founders are so close to me, their feedback is always very honest and very sincere and very mature and very well thought. So I've also learned that I'm quicker than I thought I would be to improve.
How do you choose your people? Because you have this luxury of being able to choose out of 1,000 applicants. How do you choose?
That's a very tough one because we've been changing that according to where the company is. So for example, there's been times where it's a cultural hire. Like really, what we need is someone who will get 100% behind our culture and know what to do from day one in the company, even if the technical capabilities are not necessarily where we would want it to be. But there's times where you need someone that will come and crunch the numbers. So we do technical tests, etc. No? So it's been changing throughout the last 2 years, but I am heavily involved in hiring. I've done over 200 interviews over the past 2 years. So number one, it has allowed me to put my finger on the pulse of the labor market and what's out there, which in turn stimulates my creativity when I think about new projects. Like if I know what skills are there, I know what we can use them for, right? The other thing is that we look for people who want to be with us for years. We are not at all looking for people who will jump ship in a year or two, because we invest heavily in their training. Like all the coding team, 20% of their time has been training for the past 2 months. Same for the ecological analysts. We also do trainings for other parties ourselves. So it's learning is a big part of the experience.
Where do you see Toroto in the coming 2 years?
I think the coming 2 years need to be about building a platform upon which we can then scale in a global way into the future. You know? So what do you need to be able to get to 50 countries? Well, you need to be able to get to 2 first, right? that's the number one thing in a successful way. Even 3, maybe. So you need to get to a country and have at least 1 year of seeing what happens, right? So that's 2 years of platform building in terms of global expansion. Now, in terms of technical capabilities, I do expect Toroto in the coming 2 years to become more of an academic authority, today it might be that we're getting to be a thought leader. We're probably getting to do, yes, some of the most advanced restoration projects on site, but we're not yet producing lots of academic level knowledge around that. So we are developing knowledge generation partnerships. We've already got one ongoing for a few months now that's been very successful, but we also want to directly engage with universities so that we can put our knowledge to the use of mainstream knowledge generation channels. No? Now, I also think we will be able to work on any land-based project to increment its ecosystemic services. So agricultural, using regenerative practices that fix carbon on soil, jungle conservation, jungle restoration, forestry of different ecosystems, even deserts I expect to be working in, mangrove forests, tall rainforests, short rainforests, really everything. Even potentially, for example, seagrass is an area where I do expect that those are the tools we have. So 2 years from now, we need to be able to wield all of those tools in the best way around the world, for sure. And I also expect us to be numbers. I would probably already expect us to be one of the top 10 global players in our market by 2024, for sure.
How do you need to grow yourself as a CEO to be relevant for the company in those 2-3 years from now?
First, I need to continue walking a hard path of personal growth. That is, it's not an easy path to walk, sorry. For example, I still can't exercise. Like, I know that 2024 guy, he won't be there if he doesn't exercise. He exercises because it's a physical thing, right? To be able to lead such a company, it's physical to have that stamina. It's physical to have that emotional resistance in your stomach. I mean, even that emotional resistance comes from muscles, right? So that's like on the personal perspective. On the professional perspective, I think I need to focus way more on my team in the next 2 years than I do on the outside world. Because I think it is now impossible for me to be the main driver of developing key relationships, me to be the main driver of new projects, me to be the main driver of new horizons. Really is, we're not going to make it to top 10 globally like that. So I need to be able to structure a team that is able to do that. So a lot of what I've been thinking about in the past month, for example, is I will work on my team so the team works on the work. And that's what I'm after. Now, I'm about to take a 2-week holiday, so I'm sure this answer is pretty dumb compared to what I could potentially answer after being rested. Like, there generally are things that I wait until I'm back from holiday to think about or to talk about, because you need mental resilience for some subjects.
Toroto is now in, let's say, seed round of raising $1 million for the growth, and we talked about the negative cash flow. What are the qualities you are looking for when taking new investors on board?
We are mainly looking for people who can be strategic partners for future challenges. A little bit in the way that you are being a strategic partner for this challenge, right? You were rightly chosen because you're leading a round now that will get us that $1 million for sure. So we need to be able to choose partners that can help us whenever the next challenge arises and we need to do a Series A or that kind of thing. No? That's a world where we don't work in. We work in the field, we work in geographical information systems, we work in emissions inventories. So it is extremely helpful to have partners such as yourselves and others that we are looking for that can be drivers of financial movements and corporate adjustments into the future. Now, we're also looking for partners with deep interest in doing hands-on business in our space, maybe in other jurisdictions. So one of the key drivers of growth into other countries in the future can be maybe that we partner with someone from another country that wants to develop such a business in that country hands-on. That's something we're also very, very interested about. We have not yet thought about the idea of having partners because of their technical contributions. So for example, a larger company in our space that invests and then we have access to their know-how, that kind of thing. It is not something we are closed to, but I am a little bit allergic to larger players in our space, mainly because, again, this all starts because there is a crisis of character in our space, right? So maybe the big guy in what we do is not such great, and maybe we're going to be better than that company in a short time. So I feel like having someone on board because of the technical side of things would probably be a slowdown. So we're mainly looking for corporate strategy, financial strategy, global expansion kind of partners.
When you mentioned several times the crisis of character, from an outsider, it seems that it may have its challenges to actually do business in Mexico and stay away from the, let's say, influence of the organized crime.
I think that organized crime units that operate in the same regional areas where we operate see us as hopeless hippies, tree-hugging hippies, so who also hire and pay good and hire according to law and do good by their word, etc. So I am 100% sure that there are organized crime units aware of our operation in the same areas where they operate. I mean, it would be super naive to think otherwise. But I also know that for the time being, and this is something I'm very grateful for the time being, we have never had any incident or anyone approach us to ask us to pay for protection. I mean, that kind of things that do happen a lot in Mexico. I have to say that. I mean, it's something extremely common. It happens to restaurants in the best parts of the city, of Mexico City even. So I think we are both seen as hopeless hippies, tree-hugging hippies, and that's half of it. The other half of it is that we provide very high-quality jobs in the places where we operate. One of our partners said it in a great way. He said, "We hire their ounce." So that's a great way to put it, I think.
Last topic, what would be your message to people who consider founding a company in this part of the world?
I would say go for it. I mean, I would say go for it, and I would say just do it right, like in terms of paying right, hiring according to law, always saying the truth to your employees. Like that's the number one thing where I see Latin American companies not doing a great job yet. Like that's an area where I think we can all improve. I would say go for it, even in our space. Like we need more competitors, we need more more effervescence in the private sector of what we do. We are some of the first private operators in this space in Mexico. Most of the organizations operating are NGOs, global NGOs, or foundations of companies, like charity arms of companies, government. So I do expect that in a short time from now, I hope there is a more effervescent environment where maybe other companies offer other interesting solutions in our space. So I would say go for it 100%, because Latin America is also it's interesting and it has a lot of potential as a region. I mean, 600 million people in the part of the world with the most resources from the land point of view really is a mighty thing, where I think our private sector is extremely outdated. Like we need new business people. We need a new generation of entrepreneurial thinkers that do not try to imitate entrepreneurial thinkers from other sides of the world, but that look at our core strengths and also weaknesses to develop robust Latin American business plans.
Santiago, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks a lot.